Hello, I'm Jake Boudrot, Civic Journalist at Community Television. This week, on The Record, I attended the September 9th Committee of the Whole session of Richmond Municipal Council. Then after the meeting, I spoke with Warden Amanda Mombourquette. One of the first discussion topics followed a presentation by Joshua Dubois with Nova Scotia Department of Justice about the Safer Communities program.
I came on board earlier this year in 2024. Prior to that, I spent 16 years at the RCMP in Manitoba, Nunavut, and most recently Nova Scotia. So that's kind of my Coles Notes version. As an investigator with the Department of Justice, one of our primary responsibilities is investigations under the Safer Communities and Neighborhoods Act. Not a lot of people are aware of it. I think it's one of those legislations that has kind of been buried over the years, but it is there and it is picking up steam here in the province. So I'll go over some basic details of the Act and the program, then I'll open up for questions at that point. So the Safer Communities and Neighborhoods Act, or SCAN as we call it, came into force in 2007. It's had several updates over the years since then, most recent being in 2019. There's similar legislation in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Yukon, Alberta, New Brunswick, and BC. The SCAN Act basically gives the public a way to report concerns in their neighborhood, and I'll go over kind of the specific concerns that can be reported. And it improves community safety by investigating residential and commercial buildings and land that are regularly used for one of the uses, and that's what I'll go over now. So we're pretty narrowly focused on the things in the legislation. So it's illegal sale of liquor, the illegal possession, use, consumption, sale, or transfer of any controlled substance. So that would be 90% of our work is drug work. Also anything under the Cannabis Act that's illegal, we can investigate. Illegal gaming as well. And any other activities prescribed by the regulation. There are a couple things in the Act that are listed, such as prostitution, that we don't currently really cover, just due to changes in the criminal code law. And if it is a human trafficking situation, we refer that over to the Human Trafficking Unit for the province. So anyone can file a complaint. They just have to call the toll-free number that you have there in your package or on the screen. And we have an intake worker out of Halifax that takes their information and assigns a file to an investigator. So all the investigators, there's 5 in the province right now. They're all special constables with the province. And the investigation that they undertake must reveal that a community or neighborhood is adversely affected by the activity and that this activity is habitual and ongoing. And the activity must have a negative effect on the safety or security of one or more persons in the community or neighborhood. So I guess a good example of that would be if we get a call of, their neighbors doing a little bit of drugs, but there's no safety concern within the community related to those drugs. There's not a lot we can do, unfortunately. So we do have to have the illegal activity plus the safety concern. Now there is ways that can be worked around, obviously with synthetic drugs and things of that nature with needles, right? It's a big issue in communities across the province. So there can be health and safety issues in that regard as well. So the role of the investigators, basically once we get a file, we deconflict with the local police force of jurisdiction, just to make sure they're not currently working the same file that we are. We do pull information from the different police forces, whether it's RCMP or a municipal force. Then we conduct a risk assessment, do a site assessment. Surveillance takes place. It usually takes up to about 2 weeks of time for that. Once we've concluded our investigation, we make a recommendation to the Director of Public Safety. If there's habitual activity, then a warning letter is issued to the property. The warning letter basically just says that our investigation revealed that there is illegal activity going on there. It's a community safety concern, and they have to cease that activity. If they don't cease the activity, then we would go to the next step, which is a community safety order. So a community safety order, we apply to the Supreme Court of Canada, or Nova Scotia, sorry, for a CSO, community safety order. They're pretty wide ranging. We have some stuff on here that the judge can order. So if it's a tenancy situation, we can order people to leave the property, terminate any leases that they may have. If they're an owner occupied, so if they own the house, we can actually remove the owner from their own house and we'll board up the property for up to 90 days. If it's another lease situation, a commercial setting, we can remove them and turn the property back over to the original owner. We've also seen the judge order longer closure periods. We've seen one, we had a motel in Sydney that we closed the entire motel down to reopen it, to install security cameras and give us access to them so we can monitor compliance. So it really is an open book for the judge. It just depends on the judge and what they decide to do in each situation. Anyone who's served with a community safety order can appeal it within 14 days from the date that they are served. If they're breaching the court order, they can be fined. The biggest one is $500 per day that they're in breach of that order. So the most common one we would get if they're trying to regain access to their house. They'll keep getting charged every day that they keep trying to do that. And in some situations, the judge will actually keep extending the order. So they had one in Halifax that went on for 2 years that the judge just kept extending. So, and that's the end of my 6-slide presentation. So now I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Joshua.
No problem.
Yes, thank you, Joshua. It's interesting information. I'll be honest, this is not an act that I knew very much about prior to receiving your presentation and now hearing from you. So you mentioned working with the RCMP. So if the RCMP receive a complaint of something, drug-related or alcohol-related, like that might fall under SCAN, do they typically reach out to you proactively, or does it always come in through your intake and you come out?
That's a good question. So because we do investigate the same types of behavior, policing will investigate the criminal code aspect of it.
Right.
We actually work on the civil side. Okay. So we're in a completely different court system from them, and our rules of evidence, everything like that, are very different. So for someone to be convicted on the criminal code side, it's beyond a reasonable doubt is kind of the standard rate. For civil, it's the balance of probabilities. So it's a much lower standard for what we do, which is actually quite nice, because there's a lot of times that the police can't do something because they don't have the evidence that they need to meet their threshold. Then we can come in and we have a lower threshold where, they couldn't do it, but we can do something about it. Yeah. And it may not be a criminal record situation, but at least we can remove that from the neighborhood or from the community, right? A good example of that is anything around a school, right? Yeah. If we can remove that, then that's a huge bonus. So, yeah.
That's really interesting. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Other questions for Joshua? So maybe just one more question from me. Like in terms of, you said there's 6 investigators throughout the province?
There's 5 of us.
There's 5 of you. Okay, so do you have like certain jurisdictions that you cover, or are you just kind of like you go where the fire is happening?
There's a map.
There's a map. Okay.
You do get called around.
Could I just get you to press your...
Get called around the province.
Okay, could you hit your button there if you don't mind? No, it's okay.
So we do have a map which designates areas. We do get called to other parts of the province. So for me, I'm based out of Port Hawkesbury technically, but I cover from New Glasgow right through to all of Cape Breton except for Cape Breton Regionals area. So it's a pretty big area. But I've also been called into Cumberland and Halifax, and we do get pulled around a bit. But we do have another investigator out of Sydney. That she covers mostly just the Cape Breton Regional, but she will come down here and give me a hand as well. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Joshua? No? This is really informative. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and I don't know if this is an initiative your group is kind of undertaking to reach municipal councils all over the place, but I think it's probably information not a lot of us were aware of in advance, so really appreciate you taking the time and reaching out.
Appreciate it. I did leave business cards with Shelley. Okay. So if anyone wants it, has my number on there as well. Feel free to reach out anytime and my email. And like I said, with the big reason we want to reach out to municipal councils and even provincial is that a lot of times community members go to you as councillors, right?
Yes.
To get problems addressed, and I know it's hard to get problems addressed sometimes, so it's just another avenue that you can point people towards anyway. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, and you're quite right. People do come to us with this type of thing, and so this is another resource for us. So, appreciate it. Okay, thank you very much.
You guys were talking after the presentation by Joshua Dubois, investigator with Public Health and Safety and Security with Nova Scotia Department of Justice regarding the safer communities and neighborhoods. Do you think that that's something that's needed in and maybe a good fit in Richmond County?
Well, I mean, potentially. I think there's a time and a place probably where that particular act, may need to be accessed by community members. At the end of the day, the folks they're going to probably reach out to would be the municipal councilors, and so it's really great for them to be able to come and give that update. I think it's probably, though, remains to be seen how that'll be implemented and what the need will be in Richmond County.
Next, Council talked about an application from the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce to Nova Scotia's Community Housing Growth Fund to create a nonprofit housing organization in the region.
All right, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which I believe is a review of the Warden's Council report. You'll see on the second page there's a reference to the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce housing application. So that application has really come a long way. It's coming together. So this will be an application to the Community Housing Transformation Fund, I think is what it's called. I'm sorry, but you'll see a corresponding letter of support for that in the package as well. So that is, goes in line with the $2,500 that we also allocated in our budget for that project to take place, and that will result in the development of the organization. The application, the way it's shaped up, is very specifically based on the outcome will be that the organization will come to fruition. It's not going to be a feasibility study on whether or not we should have one. It will be a consultancy or a person or somebody that will be hired to put the actual organization together, because the need is already well demonstrated. So I'm really excited about the angle that's taken, because I think we don't need more studies about that. So, okay. Any questions on the report?
Yeah, so Madam Warden, that's pretty much in line with the Antigonish Affordable Housing Society, more or less, a nonprofit housing society, correct? Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Deputy Warden. Now, at the end of the day, what the specific activities of the board will be determined by, by this, entity or a person that we hire to put it all together. But it'll be based on the priorities of this region, of which we know affordable housing is one. And I am, I'm really happy to say that as part of our Housing Matters Coalition, which continues to kind of support this work as well, a member from the Antigonish Affordable Housing Society is, participates and provides advice in that regard. So it's really a lot of connectivity across the region. Yeah.
Now, you were talking about the application from the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce to Nova Scotia's Community Housing Growth Fund, and you said that application has come a long way, and it looks like the organization, whatever that entity is going to be, is really starting to come together. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit? Yeah, so for sure. I've been working with the executive director of the Strait Area Chamber, Tanya Felix, on the content of the application. And, it's really, she's done a great deal of work on providing that background, making sure that it pulls from the housing needs assessment that was done for Richmond County and the town of Port Hawkesbury. It will be a regional nonprofit organization. And like I said to council this evening, the reason I feel it's in good shape at this point and just about ready to be submitted is because it provides some very concrete outcomes. So one of the outcomes will be that the organization gets started up. And we've had this problem studied already. We don't need to do more studies or worry about feasibility. What we need is a governance and a financial model that will assist us in providing more affordable and other types of housing solutions in our region. And we've felt the absence of a nonprofit entity that covers this particular region. We know that we're stronger together when we're working with our municipal neighbors. So it's exciting to kind of see it getting to this point. I anticipate it'll be submitted really soon. You made the comment, you said there's no studies needed. The demonstrated need is there. The numbers are there that there's a housing need, and there's no doubt about it that it's something that needs to be done. Absolutely. The housing needs assessment that was already done for Richmond County, and just our county alone, doesn't even include the town of Port Hawkesbury, I think indicated a shortage of 517 units within the next however many years. And so I think that outlines exactly what the scale of the problem we're facing. We're going to need some help to deal with that. This organization will help us be able to tap into provincial and federal funds as well. So we won't be working at this alone. We'll be working at all three levels of government. So it's hard to say right now, and you'd mentioned it, if it's going to have the same shape as the Antigonish Affordable Housing Society. It could be something along those lines, but it's too hard to say right now what
It's
it could be.
difficult to say right now, but there's no question the work of the Antigonish Affordable Housing Society has been nothing short of inspirational, and it's taken them a long time to get to where they are. I would say a thank you to them for being so willing to share their experiences and the things that they've gained knowledge on, so we don't have to start quite at ground zero. We're a little bit ahead of the game thanks to our very supportive partners like them.
While reviewing the Chief Administrative Officer's Administration Operations Report, the warden mentioned a delay in short-term rentals.
The next item on the agenda is the CAO's Administration Operations Report, which is also a little lengthy, but keep it in mind the September meeting is always covering 3 months, not just one. So,
Just remember the one 2 years ago that
right.
was here till 11 o'clock.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. One of the things I did want to, flag for council is that I know staff is working really hard on the short-term rentals levy. And so that, it seemed like it was going to be maybe at the beginning a bit of a smoother process, but there are still some bugs to be worked out. It's probably taking a little bit more time and resource than what was originally anticipated, but it is underway. So that's good news. Does anybody have any questions on that? On any part of the report, I should say? Councillor?
I'm always interested in highlighting, like to your point about highlighting something that's in there that I think is of relevance to the public, and this idea of the voluntary vulnerable persons registry, that does not come out of my face easily. I think it is exciting that and also the Voyant Alert System are both in their final stages of being ready to go. So I think as we head into a season of unpredictable weather, I'm excited to see those things coming to fruition. So congratulations on that work.
Great flag, Councillor. That actually came up at the Seniors Take Action Coalition annual general meeting today as well. So definitely something that we're all looking forward to.
Now, one thing you also mentioned was there's a delay in short-term rentals. I believe it was around the time you were talking about the just after the housing discussion, really. What's the delay there? Why is there a delay, and how long is the delay going to take? Yeah, so it's it's hard for me to say exactly how long it's going to take for that to be implemented, but it is a result of the amended marketing levy that councils on Cape Breton Island passed some time ago, extending the marketing levy to short-term rentals. Many folks would refer to Airbnb or VRBO, those types of platforms. So it's really, from a technical perspective, just a little bit more challenging to get through those issues than I think we were originally anticipating, but work is underway, and I don't have a crystal ball to tell you when it'll be finished, but I do know that our municipal council is working with other municipalities and also with Destination Cape Breton Association to make sure that gets done. Under action required, council looked at a grant request from Lisa DeWolf under the Recreation Sponsorship Grant Fund for $447.50.
So the next item on the agenda is under correspondence, and the first we have action required. We have a memo from Kathleen Jeffrey, the Interim Director of Finance, regarding the grant request from Lisa DeWolf for the Type 3 Recreation Sponsorship Grant Funds for the Instructor Facilitator Development in the amount of $447.50. So and I see that that's covering a portion of the cost, not the full cost. And I did want to also note, I think the alignment with our strategies, that section was not checked off, but I think it directly aligns with the active living strategy because it talks about the training for yoga, et cetera. So we would be looking at this point for a motion that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council to approve the grant request from Lisa DeWolf for the Type 3 Recreation Sponsorship Grant in the amount that she has requested, which was, sorry, I lost it here for a second. $447, thank you, 50. Okay, thank you, $447.50. And potentially to take that from the regional fund. So that would be my suggestion for a motion, but councillors feel free to chime in.
I'd be willing to make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Brent Sampson. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson. Any further discussion on that motion? Yep.
So obviously, it's a wonderful initiative, and I'm making the assumption that this is something that the Director of Community Development and Recreation thinks is a worthwhile endeavor, that we do have a need for further yoga instructors. So I guess I would just ask that question through you to Shannon in terms of whether or not she sees a use, because part of the application is that Lisa has agreed to give X number of hours to do some classes. So just want to make sure that's something that we can use.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson. Yes, actually, we just had a long-standing instructor, Helen Slade, retire, so it was perfect timing, yeah.
Thank you, Shannon, and also happy retirement to Helen Slade. She has been doing that work for us for a long time. Yeah. Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed? That motion is carried.
Now, the request from Lisa DeWolf for an amount of $447.50. What organization she would? Is that for yoga instruction?
So
What is it?
yeah, so we have a grant program that supports the development of instructors who would be independent, but we provide this program that they can access to help fund additional training. In return, they bring those skills and knowledge back to Richmond County, and they participate as instructors in our recreation program. So we were really pleased to see Lisa's interest, as was discussed in the meeting this evening. Helen Slade, a longtime instructor with our recreation programs for yoga, as retired. And we thank her for her contributions, but it leaves a big hole in our recreation complement of yoga, instruction, and that type of wellness activity is really important to people of all ages in our county. So very excited that Lisa's picked up the torch and is moving forward to improve her skills so that she can become an instructor for us as well.
And you noted too, this aligns with your active living strategy.
Yes.
Perfectly, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got a whole, a section of work that we do around that. You can see it reflected in our recreation program. Health, wellness, active living is a big part of it. And, I think that when we receive those types of requests, we will always want to evaluate it against what are, does this kind of align with a priority of council before we invest? And we certainly felt that this one did tonight.
Also under action required, Council debated a grant request of $10,000 under the Type 4 Regional Health General Grant Fund from Paroisse Saint-Joseph in Petit de Gras.
The next item on the agenda is the memo from, again, Kathleen, our Interim Director of Finance, regarding the grant request from the Paroisse St. Joseph Parish for the Type 4 Regional Health General Grant Funds in the amount of $10,000. Yes. Go ahead, Councillor.
At this point, I'll declare a conflict, as I do work for the parish in terms of their finances, so I'll remove myself from the discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson. Just declared a conflict. So I would open this for discussion, I guess, at the committee level here at this point. We have entertained, or we have discussed, I guess, applications in the past, and I think this is their second time coming with a potential project for council. So I will maybe mention that notes from the previous discussion was that the amount of money we felt that was being asked for this, a different project by them, was a little high. We did note that there had been no money from the diocese to support the project, and that the building is not owned by the community, it's owned by the diocese, which creates some, risk, I guess, based on what, decisions that could be made about its future, whether it could be sold, etc. And I believe we ended up, what we ended up doing there was we approved a contribution, but it came directly from the district funds and not from the regional funds as a result of the ownership issue. So that's where we landed the last time on it. But I would open this one for discussion because this is a different project and they've provided some really good information. Looks like it's some really good leveraging. The project value was at $63,000. Yeah, so councillors, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, so Madam Warden, again, going back to their initial or previous ask of metal roofing, that was the discussion around the table that the diocese did own the building, and that was a concern for us. But having said that, the diocese does not pay anything into that building. It's strictly parishioners, residents, and volunteers that are upkeeping these churches and maintaining these churches, which on Almadam right now there's only 2. So it's serving, these 2 churches are serving all Almadam for first communions, confirmations, baptism, wedding, funerals, right? So, and this upkeep and maintenance is falling strictly on the parish, right? So when it came to the metal roof project, you are correct. That funding came strictly from our district funds, District 1 and 2. And thank you, Councillor Dignan, for supporting that cause. So when they fell short of that funding request, they did go out and ask for funding from the residents, where in a couple of days, people bought sheets of metal in memory of family members, right? So these parishioners and these volunteers are upkeeping these churches, and this project here, as you can see, Efficiency Nova Scotia is coming good for a lot of that ask. But for me, I don't want to speak for residents and taxpayers, but I'm sure that the residents and parishioners of Almadam would gladly see us support this project when it comes to taxpayer funds, because they're willingly and always investing their own funds in these churches, right? So it'd be hard for me to explain that, local parishioners are digging into their own pockets, where we can't take some funds out of the people that are paying taxes on this island to upkeep and maintain these churches, right? So I would like to see us, again, I will put something forward on my district fund, but I would also like to see us put something out of our regional fund. I know it's a $10,000 ask, and most times we just go 50% of that. I would like to see us get as close to the $5,000 as we can, if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Compelling statement, certainly. I did notice on the application, Joe, in terms of the provincial contribution, it is not confirmed. It's anticipated. So we could also do something conditional. That would be also because I think they're going to need. So and I should acknowledge Andre Boudrot. Do I have the name right? I may have from the church. Yeah. Audrey? Yeah. Audrey Boudrot called. I think it was Boudrot. Anyway, I received a call from the person who was leading, some of the project, and I apologize if I've got the name incorrect, but I did appreciate receiving that outreach, and he also made some very compelling and excellent points. One of the points that he made was that this is a provincially designated heritage building, and I think the value of that structure in this community can't be understated, certainly. So I think making sure that the province is at the table would be an important thing. So that would be my feeling on it. And I really appreciated the phone call to talk about that. So I'm just going to go around the table and ask for any further comments. So I'm hearing from you, Deputy Warden, that you would be willing to contribute from your district fund, that you'd also like to see some regional funds, and that you'd like to get as close to a $5,000 contribution as possible. Okay. Councillor Dignan, I'm going to go your way at this point. So would you like to make some comments on this?
Yeah, I will. Usually you go right, so I figured today I'll give you the opportunity to go left, but that's okay. Yeah, I think I fall in line with the deputy warden's statement. I mean, honestly, we're in a position where every several weeks we're picking and choosing that what we feel is, you know, I guess the best that we can contribute taxpayers' dollars and our dollars and funds, and where we can allocate them and not allocate them. And again, we're not going to make everybody happy. You know, we support the garden fund, and people who don't plant aren't happy that we supported it, and we support a church, and people that don't go to church aren't happy that we supported it. But at the end of the day, I think we have to look at the overall picture, and really and truly, it's all about volunteers again, whether the diocese owns it or it's owned by, you know, a local hall or anybody else. I think they've showed that they do their due diligence and go out of their way for fundraising and events, and I guess I would like to see us support it, at least at the minimum, because we haven't in the past. I would like to see for this project we supported at least the 5,000, half of the.
Thank you, Councillor Jacob. Councillor
Yeah, and I understand those are compelling arguments. I think I'd probably be of the same mind as before, only because we were doing this for a specific reason. I know it happened before even this council was there, that you know, when something was owned by the parish, we saw in the past sometimes these assets can be sold off, and then our worry was investing in something that ultimately could be sold off. And I feel for all the volunteers that are putting, you know, they're putting all the work into this, and it's also probably not fair that the diocese is not contributing either. The same way I was on any of the others, I feel in no part that it's that I should decide where, you know, somebody else wants to put their district funds. I just wouldn't be comfortable with the regional fund on it.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Sampson. Okay, so then it looks like we have some work to do on crafting a motion. My suggestion is that we craft a motion that would include certain amounts from your specific district funds. I will tell you that I would not vote in favor of funds from the regional fund either, but I would put in $500 from my district fund to help just get us closer to the mark that you're trying to reach. This is an historic building in our community, and I think it would be a gesture of good support, although it's not in my district. Certainly, you know, I have family who got married in that church, and I think it's important to support it. So with that being said, would you want to craft a motion around the amounts, knowing that I'll contribute a $500 from the District 4 funds, and potentially make it conditional on, you know, that they are able to either receive provincial funding or cover the balance of the project. You know, the other thing I did want to know before we start to craft the motion, I did notice that they had in their financial statements a $43,000 renovation account, but they were only looking to contribute $7,700 towards this. So I think that would be something we could ask about as well. It doesn't really impact my desire to support the project. I still think it's a good idea, but I wouldn't be able to support a motion from regional, but I would put some funds in from my district fund. So
Take that question away.
yeah, okay, Troy, if you could take that away, yeah. So Deputy Warden, Councillor Digdon, I will leave it to you to craft a motion, because you're talking about contributions from your specific funds. Last time you did $1,500 from each. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Madam Warden, I guess first off, I don't know what I have left in my district fund, so I would probably need a breakdown.
We've just
We-
you have enough to cover probably all of it if you want to.
Yeah, again, just one question before the motion is made. Is there any organizations or committees that we have covered in the past that were, I guess, have we put funds from our regional fund that wasn't owned by, not so much just the diocese, but wasn't owned by a committee or by?
Not as much this council, but past councils, yes.
So Councillor Digdon, we approved one early on Parks Canada property. That was not property owned by us. I don't think that project went forward. No, because I think if I'm remembering correctly, the United Church Pastoral Association, I apologize, but I'm remembering Sherry Backerdax was involved in that application. The pastoral unit contributed funds. There was local ownership. So that was a different setup. But I don't know that we have on anything that was just owned externally like this, aside from the Parks Canada one. Yeah. Sorry.
I was just going to say, on the Parks Canada one as well, the issue is a little different there because it wasn't to a specific piece of infrastructure that we were worried could be sold off potentially. It was just that there wasn't a specific piece of infrastructure that we would own or anything with it, but that was a bit of a different situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's no urgency or I don't think we're looking at investing in our regional fund. But is there any option to look at something like the CCBF fund when it comes to heritage and culture, stuff like that?
That's an excellent question. That's a really excellent question. I mean, we would have to get the test done. We always test that with our provincial partners before we move ahead. But considering it's a provincial heritage building, I mean, there's certainly a case to be made for tourism and culture. 100%. I mean, our other option here is we could table this until our September regular council meeting, do a little bit of homework on the 43,000, but also on potentially CCBF or other provincial. Would you be okay with that? Okay. All right, so we will table this one for now, and we'll bring this forward at our September regular council meeting. Is everyone okay with that? Okay, great.
Now, on the next grant request, $10,000 from the St. Joseph's Parish in Petit de Gras, that seemed to generate a lot of discussion. So this is for a roof project on the church. Is that what this is for?
No, it's not. There was a previous project that they had done on the roof. This one was related to some other repairs and renovations that I understand from the volunteers. They're quite urgent in terms of making sure that they're completed in time for the before the really bad weather hits. And I think, these high winds we've been getting increasingly are not helping either. So what we've done is we've tabled that motion for this evening, or that discussion for this evening. We'll revisit it at our September regular council meeting. And specifically so that staff can gather some additional information about, their renovation fund and I think potential eligibility for other types of funding that we might have access to that would be outside of the grant program.
Maybe you can explain the difference, and people might not be aware, between regional and district funds.
Sure,
and how that plays out in a scenario like this.
Yeah, so essentially at budget time, a couple of years ago, actually, not long after we were elected, a council returned to our grant giving program. The program had been enacted in Richmond County to support community organizations that do so much good work, but then it was, I think for budgetary reasons, taken out of the budget, and so it had been missing for a little while. We restored it upon our election, and the way we've structured it is that at budget time we have organizations that we typically will support, things like our senior safety and social inclusion worker with Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health, Straight Area Transit, things like that are very strategic investments of council. We approve those in what we call a grants and contribution list. But we also establish a fund that will support projects in specific districts. So we have 5 districts in our county, and we have each of the elected councillors has up to $5,000 that they can spend in their districts or on district priorities upon approval at the council table. Everything has to come back to the council table. But then for projects such that are more county-wide in nature, we also established a regional fund. and that fund has significantly more money in it, but still a limited amount. And so we used that fund to support projects that would have maybe an impact in a wider region, or if we feel that if a particular project in a district will not only support the work that's going on with volunteers or that organization in the district, but will also be a great asset in Richmond County. We'll look to that fund to give us a little more flexibility in terms of what we can support. So
So the fact that it's owned by the diocese doesn't change the dynamic. It's more about these funds and how they're distributed. And things
well,
of that
certainly
nature.
any property that is owned by, or that is under the care of volunteers in our community, when it's not owned by the volunteers in that community, it presents a risk that we could be potentially investing taxpayers' dollars on building or property or structure that the community volunteers don't have any control over the say of how long that that building will be in use in this community or that type of thing. So there's no question the ownership issue does play a factor, but I think we all recognize that this particular parish, that's an historic building. It's been provincially designated as such, as a heritage building. So there's some extenuating circumstances here we're considering. At the end of the day, there is only a certain amount of risk that I think any council is going to be willing to accept when it comes to, putting money into buildings that we don't have ownership control over at the community level.
Under correspondence, the warden provided an update to a request by Amy Wagg for English Gaelic boundary signs.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is correspondence from Amy Wagg regarding a request for English Gaelic boundary signage and installation. Amy Wagg is a constituent, I believe, in District 3, and had sent forward this request. And I believe since then, Troy has found out some additional information from the Office of Gaelic Affairs as to what signage we already have in place and what we don't. So we'd be looking, I guess, at this stage of the game, given that information, we would look for a motion of council to work with the Minister of Gaelic Affairs and the Minister of Nova Scotia Public Works to add the new signs being sought when our budget will allow, so to push it forward to budget discussion.
Their budget, not ours.
Their budget, right. And it would be roughly 7 or 8 new signs from the original request, which had been sent in 2008. Councillor Digdon.
So, Madam Warden, where I guess their budget would be my budget now, since I'm the new maintenance supervisor out of that area, I will declare a conflict.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. I know that a resolution has been provided, but where we have a kind of new information now, we don't need to follow that particular resolution. I think the resolution we'll look for is one that's a little more flexible and just instructs or asks the CAO to work with the Minister of Gaelic Affairs and the Minister of Nova Scotia Public Works to add the new signs being sought when budget allows.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson. Could I have a seconder, please?
As a Scottish descendant myself, I happily second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Troy, for doing that bit of extra homework on that. Much appreciated. If you could let Councillor Digdon know. There we go.
Now, on the request for English Gaelic boundary signage and the installation now, this is something that's going to go beyond, that's going to be into other communities in the county?
Yeah, so in 2008, the council at the time had put forward a motion to have designated specific communities have access to bilingual signage in both English and Gaelic. That work was done some time ago, but we recently had a request from a resident noting that there are additional communities that should be considered, and so we've asked staff to work on, identifying those communities, work with both the Office of Gaelic Affairs and Nova Scotia Public Works to make sure we're not duplicating any work, but just to kind of fill in the blanks. And that's a provincial program funded by a provincial budget. So, you know, we'll be looking forward to the information the staff brings back, and we've authorized them to go forward with putting that request in based on what they find out in terms of what the gap is in the communities that have not received those signs yet.
So you're looking at 7 or 8 signs? Is that in 7 or 8 communities?
We are estimating that, but the final number will be determined by our staff investigation. And it will not have an impact on our municipal budget. It's a provincial program.
Finally, there was considerable discussion generated by a grant request of $9,400 from the Seniors Take Action Coalition.
We'll move on to unfinished business, and we have the Seniors Take Action Coalition grant request for the Type 4 Regional Health General Grant Funds in the amount of $9,400. Just to get started, I want to recognize we've got some folks from Seniors Take Action Coalition today with us in the gallery, so great to see you here. The amount that they're requesting is $9,400. It does represent 100% of their project costs. The project, I think we had kind of talked about it the first time it arrived at our table. It looks like a really great one, but I'll open it for comments from councillors. I think we had requested some additional information from SDAC, which we've now received and is formed part of the package. So I'm just going to go around the table, and I think I'll start with you, Councillor Melanie Sampson, if that's okay, and we'll go counterclockwise this time.
Waiting for the light. So it is a really wonderful project, I will say, you know, and the Seniors Take Action Coalition is super active in the entire county. So I certainly see myself supporting this project in some capacity from the regional fund. I would also be willing to support it in terms of some money out of my district fund as well. As always, I have concerns regarding 100% funding of any project. I mean, it is in the Type 4 category, which does not require a 50% criteria to it. And as I looked at their application, I was thinking, you know, Type 4 was regional health, whatever the other term is, and I really felt like it's almost a Type 5, which is a priority of council type of thing as well. So the challenges that I have, and I guess I'm open to the discussion with council, is number one, the funding at 100%, but recognizing that the funds that they have available to support it are very, very limited. And the second piece of that, I think, is that, you know, we do have a position here at the county that is like mandated, if you will, or the task of that position is to work in the community to do a lot of the things that are here. So I just wonder if there's ways that we could maybe work together to reduce the financial commitment that STAC would need to take on in order to do some of the things they're doing. Yeah. And again, I'm open to that, as I'm the first person to speak on the proposal, on the application. But I definitely support it. I would definitely go 50%. After that, I don't know the answer to that. We also have limited funds, so I'm also a bit conflicted with that. So open to conversation with other councillors. And
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson.
Councillor Brent?
I was thinking along some of the same lines in the sense that the coordinator we recently hired here, and I don't want to put anyone on the spot at the moment, but whether or not that could be, part of this, I'd be willing to support it to some degree for sure, and probably even a little bit out of the district fund as well. My only other concern would be, whether or not it would become an ongoing thing or an annual thing, like whether or not we'd be able to sustain that.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson.
Great questions, and I'll go over to to Councillor Digdon next for your comments before kind of making some as well. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you very much, Madam Warden. This is one of the grants that I think we have no choice, or that we actually want to support. And not whether it's a choice, but it's one of those things where it's I think when you look at numbers, almost 70% of our population is going in the senior category, and if you wait another 10 years, we'll all be sitting, or some of us will be sitting in that senior category as well. So I think we should use our regional fund, and it's there for a reason, and I think this is a great support. So I will definitely support from my my fund as well, but I think we should also include the regional fund.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Deputy Warden?
Yeah, for me, again, I agree with Councillor Digdon. It's hard to ignore the word seniors when it comes to this county. Yeah, I don't know if it's at 70%, but it's in the mid-50s or 60% in this county of aging population, right? So, again, this is a great group and a great coalition doing great work. And again, for me, it's hard to ignore the word seniors in this county. So I'd like to see us get as close to this 9,400 as possible, with all of us taking some from our district funds and then taking a large amount from our regional fund to see how close we can get to this 9,400.
Sorry, thank you, Deputy Warden. We're whispering calculations over here to try to reach the the goal. Okay. So obviously support for this. Troy and I are just kind of exchanging some notes about the direct costs around meeting expenses and promotional materials. Promotional materials consists of copying according to the application, which is a function we have in-house. So we could potentially provide that in kind towards the project. I'm also wondering about the 800 in meeting expenses. We would have expense lines within our budget for our, in our community development recreation department, potentially. I don't want to commit anything before we have staff, kind of chime in on that. But certainly the copying to me seems to be an easy win. To reduce the full $9,400 from the grant funds. So maybe, I don't know, I don't want to put you too much on the spot, Troy, but I might do that just a little bit just to see if, you think, just to get some confirmation around, could we cover the copying? Is there a way we could help maybe with the meeting or the travel expenses somehow in another capacity outside the grant funds?
Quite possibly. The promotional, yes. Meeting expenses and travel, I'm just wondering if under our committee's policy, we have travel and for members and stuff like that as well. We may be able to work something there. I just need to take that away and look at it to see if there's a way that we can work that in there. And office expenses of $600, I'm not sure, and there's no lines on that I saw or any further detail. No. But if it's stationery and stuff like that, or monitors and laptops,
or an extra laptop
or something, we can certainly look and see what we have to assist. Like if you guys could cover the 5,000, I think there's enough.
Oh, sorry.
Well, that's all right. Then we could work on the rest.
Yeah, no, for me, I mean, those are all good ideas and good points. For me, I'd be willing. I'm looking at the five of us around this table, and I'm sure, again, we're all on the same page when it comes to seniors. I'd be willing to take or look at a motion that we take $480 out of our district funds each. That'd be $2,400, and maybe go maybe $4,000 out of our regional fund to get the $6,400 out of the $9,400. That's where I would.
So you're considering 100% support?
Coordinator.
Okay, sorry, I didn't catch that. So the regional was 4,000. Right, and we could have that with the understanding that we could cover the cost of any photocopying, which is what they outlined as the promotional materials. So that would be closer to the the 8,000. Yeah. Okay.
I know there's no appetite for 100%, but let's get as close 70 or 75% as we can get, in my opinion.
Okay, so the deputy warden is proposing a motion to contribute $6,400 towards the project, consisting of $480 coming from each district fund and $4,000 from the regional fund. And also, and further, I guess, to, to provide support where possible on the promotional material photocopying of 1,600, I guess.
About 1,600?
Yeah,
So now we're at 8,000 over the 9,400.
right. That's the motion that's being proposed.
I'd be comfortable with that.
Okay.
So is that a second?
All right, so.
You know, that, just for the sake of, it probably should go around the table for the district funds to make sure that everybody is comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Whether or not they want to answer specifically, that's up to them.
Councillor Digdon, are you okay with using some of your district funds? I think we haven't, in that amount, I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay. And I think Deputy Warden, you were making that suggestion, and Councillor?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All right. So the motion is that we would provide $6,400 in cash contribution, $480 from each of the district funds plus $4,000 from the regional fund, and further that we would work with the group to support them in reducing their other costs, particularly on the promotional material, to help them make sure the project is successful. Okay? Are we okay there? All right. I'm restating, I just want to make sure I captured your intent. Okay, perfect. All right, so any further discussion? Councillor?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would like to add, just, and I know we're really close to the number they're looking for, is that if office expenses, again, we are looking at it a promotional, but it might be something we can do on the office expenses or the meeting expenses.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think that captures the intent of I think it captures the intent of the motion with that kind of further statement, and there may be a piece of equipment or something that we could provide that would help, make the project successful. Okay. All right, so all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed? All right, that motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is the review of checks issued. We've got June, July, and August presented. Does anybody have any questions regarding the review of checks? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. The next item is the review of action items. There were a couple of just updates I think we may need to mark as complete, but Shelley, I'll send those to you. I did want to ask council to entertain, I guess, an adjustment to item number 192, which is the discussion we had on the joint council meeting with the town of Port Hawkesbury. We got as far as a draft agenda. We just ran out of time. There were other issues at play there as well. I guess my feeling is we would maybe mark this as, I don't want to say completed, but at least mark it as adjusted or deferred until the next council comes in. We're on the brink of a municipal election, so would folks be okay with that instead of marking it as in progress to let this
Linger.
Yeah, it's been lingering for some time. Councillor?
I'm just wondering if it would be appropriate for us to just, is it still appropriate for us to maybe rescind the motion and then it could be reviewed again by a new council? That way it would actually remove it from the list?
Thank you, Councillor Sampson. We could certainly do that, and I think we could ask staff to prepare that motion for our next, for our regular council meeting, because it would have to be in regular council. Okay, great. Okay, there were no items added to the agenda, so I'll open it for a 15-minute question period. This is not restricted to items on the agenda. We've opened the committee of the whole question period for questions of any type. I can't believe it's only 8:25 with the size of that agenda and the complexity of some of those discussions. But all right, so we'll open it for questions. If there are folks who are wanting to ask questions from home, there's a phone number to call, and that is 902 226-9885. After a couple of months of not mentioning that phone number, I almost forgot it. It's 902-226-9885 for anyone watching at home who would like to ask questions, or if there are members of the gallery who have questions for us about anything on the agenda or other municipal-related items, feel free to do so now. We'll just give that a minute because there's a bit of a time delay, so. Yes, absolutely, sure, if you have one. But we'll ask you to come to the desk, and there's a microphone, so people at home can hear the question you're asking as well. It's putting you on the spot. I know it's the nature of our public meetings. Just your name and...
I'm Janine Lacroix. I'm the treasurer of Seniors Take Action Coalition. Of course, the grant request on the agenda tonight is of interest to me. And from participating at our AGM this morning, Madame Amanda, we have covered only a part of our annual report because we've been in existence since 2016. Functioning with volunteer from the board and different projects, funded projects from either community health or a health board. And we are incorporated since July 2023, and we still function or operate on a volunteer basis, work being done by the board members. We have the chance to work with an outreach community coordinator for the projects. So we have no staff, no office, no pencil, no pen, no computer, we own absolutely nothing. So that's why we were asking the municipality to start with a core funding so that we can be more active. We are active, but we could be even more if we had a bit of operational funding. The person who really does a lot of work for us, she does it more on a volunteer basis, along with the professional fees she gets from the projects. So, but if we have some funding, it would help us to let's say reward her work for to make a stack even more representative and even more active. So I'm still not sure of the amount that was voted tonight. And I want to take this opportunity also to thank the municipality to already fournir, provide some paperwork, some publicity work, and like today at the AGM, the annual report has been printed here by Danielle, so which we appreciate a lot. So thank you for wanting to keep helping us in that way. But I'm not sure of the amount that was voted for.
So I can help clarify that for you. So what we approved tonight was contribution directly from our grants program of $6,400. So it's $3,000 short of what you were asking for. But what we also included in our motion was that perhaps the county could work with your group to cover things like some of the other costs in another way. access to our photocopier to do your copying, because $1,600 was the amount for copying. So if we did that in-house for you, that would take that cost away, right? So that gets you closer to your 8,000, right? It gets you up there, because we can maybe help with that, and to work with you on, if there are some travel or meeting expense and office supplies, is there potentially a spare laptop, or even you might need a space, or you might, is there some way that we could help cover that? So we'll try to help you cover those pieces that you outlined outside of the coordinator and the travel, right? So that's essentially what we're going to cover directly for cash, was the coordinator and the travel, and then the rest we'll work with you to see if there's things here that we can provide that will make sure you can do the project successfully. Okay.
I want to specify for traveling, it's to represent STAC to other federations, provincial federations, or national federation, other federations, the Seniors Federation, so that we have a representation during their annual general meeting.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I think that works really important, so I'm glad we were able to include it in the grant request, and I think good evidence of that was the presence of the folks from Community Links there today at your meeting, right? You want to be able to connect with these provincial organizations. So, yeah, great. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And it is appreciated.
Okay.
So regarding the $9,400 grant request from Seniors Take Action Coalition, do you agree with the councillors Melanie Sampson and Brent Sampson that providing 100% funding is problematic? You want to support it, but going that far could be a little of a
Yeah,
dicey?
I mean, certainly, when we put together a list not long after we were elected of community organizations in this county, there were somewhere around 200 of them. And they're all run by volunteers, and they're all doing great work. And so, the challenge becomes we don't have the financial resources to be able to provide core funding, 100% support to all of those organizations. So we have to be really careful about, making sure that organizations have the capacity and the sustainability to be able to pull off the programs or the projects that they're bringing forward to council, but also that we're not setting a precedent where, after supporting one at 100%, we may see many, many, many more come through the door. And I will tell you, these are organizations that are all making a tremendous difference in our community. So what we tried to do this evening, and it was a really interesting discussion, I thought, was look for some creative ways that we can support the Seniors Take Action Coalition. We've been strengthening our partnership with them over the last number of years. We've got a new section on our website dedicated to their, to advocacy for seniors. We've got they currently use, as you heard from Janine this evening, they did some photocopying here of their annual report. We're going to look for some creative ways that we can provide funding closer to the 70% mark of the project that they were wanting to do, but then also what else could we kind of be doing with our assets here at the county or with our staff to help make sure that the project is a success. So I think you heard from council, everyone was really committed to making it happen. And Seniors Take Action Coalition has just been an excellent voice for seniors around the table, and they've influenced our emergency planning, the vulnerable person registry that we kind of talked about here tonight. They've provided some really excellent leadership in terms of advocacy for seniors, which make up a large percentage of our population here in Richmond. So I'm excited about kind of how we might be able to support them. We just needed to be a little bit more creative and maybe look at the assets we have in place and how it could support the success of the project.
Yeah, I think you'd mentioned like photocopying, things like that, like office things that you guys can do here on your end to take.
Exactly. There may be surplus equipment if they needed some space to conduct some interviews. So there are other ways that we can support them and the work of that particular project. So.
Thank you for watching. Please tune in again to find out what we will be talking about on The Record.